Thanks very much indeed. Welcome to the channel. My name is Jim Ferguson, and I'm here with Jasper Smith, all the way from Holland. Hi, Jasper. Great to see you. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your show, Jim.
Well, no, it's my absolute pleasure, actually. And, as a first-time guest on the show, because we've got a lot to talk about, but as a first-time guest, could you just tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're based?
Of course. My name is Jasper. I'm in the Common Sense studio in Amsterdam. I'm a journalist for the alternative news network. I work for CommonSenseTV.nl, which is the fifth largest alternative news network in the Netherlands. I used to be. I've been educated in food. I'm a chef. I worked all my life in gastronomics, and like 8 years or something during my entrepreneurship in gastronomics. I had letters coming in from the government with stupid stuff that I need to arrange. So that was my deep dive in politics. So I'm interested in politics and court cases, and you can divide it in seven stuff. And food is that one of my interests, of course.
Well, that's a great interest to have. And of course, you and I met each other just at the weekend past because I'd gone across to attend the Taking Back Your Future conference with Christine Anderson, MEP from Germany, from the European Parliament, as well as a lot of freedom fighters who had come in from Australia, the UK, America, and Canada. And of course, I met a lot of people that I've met in my travels over the course of the last few months, and it was great to see them. But I met you at the first event that we went to that had a lot of Dutch farmers there. My
Correct.
goodness, they're big guys, aren't they?
They're massive.
I'm quite tall, right? I'm about 6'2" in my boots, in my cowboy boots. I would felt like a midget with these guys are pushing 7 feet tall, Jasper.
They've got mega hands, so don't get a fight with them. They will pick you up and throw you around.
I'm telling you, but what great people, I've got to say, what wonderful people. And these people are the salt of the earth. These farmers, they're producing the food. They're the Holland, for anybody that doesn't know this, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jasper, I think it's the second biggest producer of food in Europe. And they're a tiny country compared to the likes of Germany and some of these other nations, aren't they?
I think Germany and France are 4 times bigger than Holland is. The 1/3 of the Dutch ground is owned by the government, and 2/3 is privately owned. So, for example, farmers. So we've got major cities, but we've got rural lands where farmers are still doing their works from family heritage on. So yeah, farmers are the one who preserving our landscape. They're not only farming, but they're all during winter, for example, they're been hired by governments to clear the road from snow, make sure the waterways are tight and needy. So they are really something special to the Netherlands. So by taking the land or expropriating the land, you see less and less of our Dutch beautiful landscape. So it used to be in centuries, but it has also different parts of leveling without the security of the Netherlands. It's not only during winter and waterways, but food security is quite important. And of
Really
course,
interesting. Sorry, on you go.
yeah, of course, that's the food security is one of the things we have left over since the Second World War. On the end of the Second World War, there was a food scarcity. There was no food where people were eating flower buds of the tulip bulbs. So during the growth of the Netherlands and coming to this age 80 years ago, we still have that in mind. Especially our elderly have still in mind that there was no food. And by growing food and handling the landscape, we made sure we grow in enough yield from our fields that we not only supply the Netherlands, but we export it throughout the rest of the world. So, and that became economically wise a big thing because we're earning money out of it. So we're not only supporting our Dutch families, but we're also feeding the rest of the world.
Now, we're going to come back to that in a second, but one of the things that struck me, I mean, when I got invited to go across and to hang out with you guys and to get to know you and the other freedom fighters that were there.
That was fun, right?
Yeah, it was great fun with you. It was great fun with you guys, I got to say. But one of the things that struck me, and it really did struck me, was the audience. I mean, we were in a big theatre. It was packed out. I mean, I don't know what the actual number was, but it looked like there was about 700 people there. You couldn't fit any more in.
Correct.
And the people had come from all over Holland and all over the world, actually, to be there. And you know something? I think if they'd had a venue twice as big, they would have filled it. I think that the tickets were sold out. I don't think they could get any more people in. Did you get that impression?
That it was, I think it was sold out. The crowd was really exciting to be there. It was on what is it on the close to the German border. I think if you have this rally or event close to Amsterdam, you're gonna have twice or third as much. And this was actually the first time, and we're not used to have paid tickets and see somebody important talk on the stage. So for a first time rally in this type of topics, it was a marvelous event. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that the speakers that were on the stage were really good. I thought they were very, very, they were on point. There was no much in the way of crossover. They stuck to particular themes, but they really hit it hard. So It was a great success, and I would very much like to see. And I pay tribute to the organisers who actually went and did that event. And I spoke to them, and I've been in communications with them since I got back to the UK. And it's very exciting to see such passion from people who really understand the importance of supporting our farmers. But you mentioned something earlier on, and I think it's important to revisit that because about 3,000 farms are being expropriated currently by the Dutch authorities. And basically what that means is they're seizing the farms. There's no choice in the matter. Is that right?
Correct. They're still paying them off, but it's not the amount it should be. For example, if a farm costs 6 million euros, they're probably getting 2 out of it, because then they're saying the land and stuff is dirty, and so they get financially compensated for it. But it's not enough as it's not enough that it's supposed to be worth of. So they get screwed over by the government. But the government is doing, like for if you're dividing the farmers on itself, they implement each time in new rules. So the 3,000 farmers was yes, they need to go, and they're calling them the top polluters. So if you're thinking about a big farm, you're thinking about a farm, for example, with dairy or for cows, and they've got 10 or 30,000 cows on that farm. But it's not a Dutch thing. The biggest farm in the Netherlands has 3,000 cows. Like a small dairy farm has 60 or 80 cows. So, but they're talking about the same thing that we maybe know from China or maybe Australia, that they have got loads of cattle. We don't have those kinds of farms. But the 3,000 farms that they need to go, they're the top polluter, and they're close to national parks. So that was that point of view. But it's terrible. It's terrible if you're there for 3 or 4 or 5 generations with your family, supporting the farm, supporting your family, because they're all living on that same farms, maintaining the ground to make sure the yield is still enough. It's horrible. And if you get sold out, that's the other thing. You can't be a farmer anymore. Not in the Netherlands, not in Europe. You need to sign that away in the small fines of small letters in your contract. So if you want to be able to be a farmer, you need to go to Australia or Canada or born somewhere not within the European Union.
It's incredible, and you know, when you say, as you did just a little while ago at the beginning, where just after the war or thereabouts, there was a lot of real starvation. I mean, it was famine conditions in the Netherlands, real hunger, not people just doing without, but actually really hunger. And if they were having to eat flower bulbs just to try to get something into their body sustenance to survive, that's desperate times. And of course, in the wartime, there's elderly people that I've often enjoyed speaking with and learning from about what things were like, you know, as the bombs rained down on London and other places that I know well. Now, you know, we could be looking, there are people that are saying, indeed, members of the European Union, the Commission have alluded to it, that there could be famine or food shortages in the future. So you would think that the authorities, the likes of Mark Rutte, who I think is the outgoing, is it the Prime Minister that you call him in Holland?
Mark Rutte is our Prime Minister and he is outgoing. So we had new elections and in Holland we've got several parties, I think 14 or 15 in total. And they need to form a coalition. And when that coalition has been formed, then Prime Minister Rutte can go to his next job.
Which will no doubt be in the World Economic Forum or the United Nations or one of these other globalist orders.
He has a job on his mind and is becoming a General Secretary of the NATO.
Oh, NATO, right. Okay, well, that figures, doesn't it? All right. Well, I mean, you've got politicians over there. You've got some good people out there. You've probably got some bad ones, but you've also got some good politicians. And I think Geert Wilders, I hope I'm pronouncing his name, Geert Wilders, I think he rose to prominence quite recently, didn't he?
So yeah, he won the election. The party of Wilders is called Party for Freedom, PVV, and he has the majority seats in parliament. So he is the one actually forming the new coalition. And he is, if you divide it, he's on the right side, but he has some left ideas in it. So, for example, housing and when you lost your job, for example, these are a bit of the leftists. But he wants to have an exit. He wants to go out of the European Union. So that's what I guess a lot of Dutch people voted on him. But for example, another party is Forum for Democracy, which is the party leader of Thierry Baudet. And that's a right-wing party, a like-minded party as well. So yeah, these are the main guys who are fighting in politics on our side. Yeah.
Well, let's hope that the people in Holland wake up, because here in the UK and other nations around the world, there's still a lot of people that are fast asleep. They haven't realized the dangers of these globalist institutions and what they're doing. And, you know, in my opinion, I don't know what you think, Jasper, but in my opinion, the likes of the World Economic Forum are passing these policies to attack farmers because they want to put those farmers out of business. They want to drive them off their land. What you're saying about these 3,000 expropriated farms only being given maybe something like 20% or 30% of what they're actually worth, it's tantamount to theft. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree on that, because if you want to sell your farm, if you're done with it, or you're doing something else, and you're selling it on the market, that should be the price. But if you're getting maybe a third or 10th of the price that it should be, you're going to be screwed over by the government, and that's it. Then you have to pay taxes over it, because you're becoming wealthy. It's money on your bank. So when you're the final amount, maybe you can buy a house and have an ordinary job. But yeah, that's I don't think when you're grown and raised on a farm, that's your livelihood, and you've been forced in something else. So, but the 3,000 farms are not on itself. I think we've got 40,000 farms in the Netherlands, and basically, if you look at them on different light, we because we're such a small country, we don't have enough room. And we're getting loads of immigrants in. Our population is growing that much. I think we have, in the last 10 years, we have 1 million new people within the Netherlands. So, and they need to have a house. So by throwing a farmer off his land, you can buy easily a new living, a residential area. So that's what they're doing as well. And of course, if you look at the bigger picture, what the World Economic Forum is talking about, as well as the UN, with their sustainable development goals, fair housing for everybody, the smart city, or however they call it, it needs to build somewhere. So, but that's not only the thing is because Holland, if we look at the trilateral city, it's a piece of Germany on it and a piece of Belgium on it, and here and the Netherlands, and it's supposed to be in the up to 2050, the agenda, supposed to be 40 million people are going to live here instead of 70 now in Holland. So we need to build, but it needs to have, we are also the portway, so Rotterdam Harbor and Antwerp Harbor, which is in Belgium, but the same entry road, needs to supply food that we're gonna import from somewhere for delivery throughout all of Europe. So it's coming in the harbor of Rotterdam, and then it needs to be transported, but it has to be stored at some places. So the industrialization of the Netherlands, you see it happening right now.
You know, about 13, 14 months ago, I as you know, because I talked to you about it, I'd been involved with the Brexit Party and involved in the political systems. And I came back after sort of a 2 or 3 year kind of absence on social media. I came back into it and I started to talk about things. And that led to me being invited onto lots of different groups on WhatsApp and different things, you know, and all I could see was a lot of talk, but not much actually happening. So I decided to do something about it. And I started to talk to people. I actually spoke to people in Holland as well back then. And I spoke to people in America and Canada and really all around the world. And one of the things that became very clear to me, Jasper, was that there was similar things happening literally in every country that had a globalist infiltrator in the government. You talked about immigration there, and I think it's important to differentiate between immigration and illegal immigration.
It's illegal immigration. They don't come in. It's illegal migrants. But it's a bit of a harsh word. But that's the thing. So we're getting loads of them in, and we're not. Holland is not. Don't have a border to Africa, for example, but we're getting African immigrants walking into our country. So,
well, if you think about it for a second, there's the Dutch government. They're throwing farmers off their land to build homes for illegal migrants. What government does that to their own people? You know, they're illegal. They're illegal. I went to Ireland just literally a few weeks ago, and I spent time down in Southern Ireland with some great, magnificent people. You'd love them there. And they've got exactly the same problem, Jasper, because there's all these illegal migrants. Many of them are African, coming in there. They're not working. They're going straight onto benefits. They're being given priority for housing, and they're illegally there.
Correct.
So
same thing.
There's no doubt about it. And it's happening across the English Channel. It's happening in the US southern border. It's everywhere that you find globalists. And you have to think to yourself, this is where people need to wake up fast. If they're illegal, then why are the governments bending over backwards to house them and throw their own farmers off their land to make accommodation? Don't you think it's all by design? I mean, do you think they're doing it deliberately?
I know they do it deliberately. That's the whole thing. If you're now we have in our parliament of the Green Left and the Labour Party, they join each other. We've got our we call it our climate pope. He's the one of the Green New Deal within the European Union. And he said the white people living in Europe or the Netherlands, we need to have some fresh blood coming in. Otherwise, we're going to be mentally ill.
I can't say. I mean, it's ludicrous what's going on and what they're telling. That the lies that they're going on about with regards to climate change, they're terrifying young girls and young people into thinking that we're all going to be dead in 5 years. You know, it's ridiculous what's going on. What was the last thing that they said? It was climate. It wasn't climate change or climate. It was climate boiling or something ridiculous.
Oh yeah, they need to raise the bar because nobody will listen anymore because that's the thing. But it's not in Holland. It's not the other thing. So we've got a lot of illegal immigrants coming in, but we now have 110,000 people from Ukraine stored in 4-star hotels. So we're paying for those as well. So of course they're talking about when you need to flee your country for something bad, but we're in that region, so when we supposed to take care of people from Ukraine, but they're in at least 4-star hotels. So a 2-person bedroom for a night is 110 euros. Then they need to have 3 meals a day. Then they get 50 euros on a card to spend, and they get free in dental and healthcare. So which we all need to pay for. So we've got people sleeping on the street because they can't afford their housing anymore. And we take care of people from different places in the world, and we make sure we're doing everything to take care of them. So and if you we've got food banks as well. So local people need to go to the food bank. Our elderly in elderly homes are the last 10 years there's 60,000 people laid off in elderly care. Just to fit in the budget, and then you say we have to do it because Holland is such a rich country. We can do this. Like Angela Merkel says, we're chauvinist. But it's financially it's a hard thing, and we can't grow that hard. So there's a shortage on everything, and then on top of it, the expropriation of all our farmers because they're not the 3,000. I guess every farmer needs to go. They basically they earn their own wages, so they are self-sufficient and self-supporting, and that's something which is the European Union don't want, because we all have to be the same people as in communistic countries.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I know my objection, not so much to the European Parliament because they're democratically elected, but my objection and why I fought for British independence was because of the European Commission, who are unelected. They sit there telling everybody else what to do, and they won't pass any laws, or they won't allow the lawmakers in the Parliament to pass any laws unless they agree with them. That's not what I call democracy, Jasper. And I think what we're seeing a similarity between the UK and Holland and Ireland and France and America and Canada and Australia and New Zealand, everywhere where these globalists are operating. There's quite clearly an agenda, and they're using mass numbers of illegal migrants to destabilize and weaken sovereign nations from within. When I was in Ireland, I was horrified at what I saw there. I went on a march with about 10,000 Irish patriots in Dublin. And it was one of the biggest marches that had ever happened in many, many years. People are waking up, though, to what's going on. And I think from my point of view, Jasper, I think it's important that the countries who believe in the things and the values that we do, we need to start working together. And that's why I was very, very pleased to be invited over to take part in what you were doing. I've always admired the Dutch farmers in particular, because actually they led the way. They had some massive protests going on years ago. And they're champions, in my opinion, as to what they did. But it's important that they know they've got international support, and that people around the world standing with you guys over there, not just in our own respective countries, but that we're working for people and fighting for farmers all around the world.
Yeah.
As a journalist, as somebody that's quaint with the media, can I ask you, what is the mainstream media like in Holland? Are they as bad as they are in the UK?
Maybe worse, but yeah, they're really terrible. I can't hardly watch any television. When I'm listening to news from the radio, it's the same thing. it's like a propaganda state with they're basically if you look at Freedom of Information Act, they're pillars of the governance. So they're telling the stories. If during COVID, I had loads of contact with the Ministry of Health, and it was I was looking for answers, and they were just saying, on our website, there's all the information, and that's the information you're gonna tell. So I've got questions about that information. We can't handle it. This is the propaganda that you need to talk about. That's it, Jasper, and have a wonderful day. So it's really bad. Like the state media, we call them fake news. And they are. If I'm doing court cases, and in high-end court cases, I'm sitting next to the mainstream media, the RTL, the SBS, the state media, and they look all fancy. But there's a conversation like this, it ain't gonna happen. They're stupid people.
Well, I think it's even worse than that. They're not just stupid. Some of them are. Some of them are actually, it's worse because they know what they're doing and they know they're telling lies. Course. And they are part, as you say, of the establishment. And in Canada, I've got lots and lots of people that follow me from Canada. They're great people. I had the great pleasure of being over in Ottawa towards the end of last year. And I once again met a lot of the same people that you met who came across this time to Holland. Yeah. Freedom fighters, members of the Freedom Convoy, Chris Barber, Harold Juncker, people like that, just magnificent people. And one of the things that they were telling me was that the Canadian government, the Trudeau administration, is using Canadian taxpayer dollars to pay the mainstream media to say nice things about them and not to talk about the things that's really going on. And they have got heavy CCP, Communist Chinese Party infiltration going on in Canada. You've probably been aware of that. You would have seen some of the news, but it really is taking place. It's quite concerning, isn't it?
It is. If a state media, I think it's €1 billion that the government is paying to the state media as well. Then they've got hiring influencers. So with a lot of artists with a major following on social media, they're hiring to tell them story or telling their background to get the shot or whatever, or listen to the government. So I think one of the reasons I've doing this is because when I was watching the news, the same thing with Trump. Trump was saying something on the television, and the television was twisting his words. And I finally wanted to know what he was talking about, so I was looking into the whole interview, and the whole interview was disabled, or the context of the interview was totally different when you watch the whole interview. And I thought, I'm being screwed over, and that's how I become interested in doing journalism, because if I'm interested in it, there's probably other people who are doing it, so are interested. So that's how I've becoming involved with CommonSenseTV.
Well, it's funny how we get led or sometimes just drawn into things when we find there's wrongdoing taking place. I never really set out to do anything like I'm doing now either. When I set up Freedom Train International as a resistance movement, as a freedom movement with a global reach, I never thought that it was going to go the way it did. And we only launched in January. We've got multiple thousands of members joining us all around the world. And, one of the things that struck me was the passion of the people that are trying to push back against this globalist narrative. But you mentioned Trump. I mean, I have to be honest with you. I'm of the opinion that Trump was a great president for America, and indeed probably for the world. Does he have his faults? Of course, we all have our faults. Does he ever get everything right? Probably not. None of us do. But the thing is, he means what he says. He loves his country. And indeed, when I was across in America, I think it was about October, November time last year, I traveled across 8 different states, and I was on stage and I was giving talks and speaking to people. And one of the things I got asked to do, they said, would you take the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag? And of course, I'm not an American, but I did, and I led the Pledge of Allegiance on stage. Okay. And I, it means a lot. People love their respective countries, and there's nothing wrong with that. People should love their countries. They should be passionate about their own countries, don't you think?
I do think the same thing. I've done an interview with Christine Anderson from the event, and I asked her the same question. I'm a proud Dutchie. I'm really proud at what my parents and my grandpa parents done for the Netherlands, and I can imagine Anderson is a proud German. I can and the same thing for people from Italy or Spain. They're all, and that doesn't mean that we're all in the continent of Europe, but it doesn't mean that we need to be within the European Union. I see it. We can work together, but we don't have to lay in bed together. And if I'm going to Spain on holiday, I love to eat some tapas. And the same thing if I'm going to Germany, I love to get a big Wiener Schnitzel for and a German beer. And the same if I'm going to France, I want to drink champagne, of course. So that's the and if I'm drinking that champagne in France, there's this proud French guy telling us how he's been growing the grapes and stuff. So there's nothing wrong with it. And Anderson explained me, said it's a bit like having a child. You're really proud on your child. That doesn't mean that you hate another man's child, but that's just the way how we think about it. So and it doesn't mean that we should bully people from a different country, or I can imagine you must be proud on your country for yourself, and the same thing for people from Canada or America.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, I would agree with you. Christine Anderson is absolutely fantastic. She's a great speaker. She's inspirational. She's a very brave lady. She calls it and she says it just like she means it. And I was pleased to meet her and spend time with her when I was in Ottawa. And of course, when I was over in Holland there, we sat down and I was able to have a chat with her before breakfast before I flew back to the UK. So she is a truly great lady. But talking about going back to Trump slightly, there is an election in America coming up. There's a lot of people that feel that, because America is a very powerful country, they're involved in so many different things.
Yeah.
Do you think that Trump will get elected? Do you think they're going to try and pull a fast one and try and even stop him standing? What's your thoughts on that?
Of course, the hassle that we're getting, but the same thing on our side of the political field, we're gonna be harassed anyway. So, but I think we're the creative. We're thinking if we're making rules and regulations, we overthink everything. So not for specific. For part of the people, we're thinking things over. So I think for the States, Trump is on our side, option number 2, and maybe, but I didn't look up that well. How it's called, the independent.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think that there's a few people. He's certainly leading the way. I mean, he's gone through and won a lot of states, hasn't he?
Trump is gonna be the top leader for the Republicans, but the other guy who's been shot at, but his nephew is running as well as independent.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess he's my second option. So he's doing a lot for the vaccines and stuff, but.
You mean Robert Kennedy is
correct.
Also he's also very strong against the COVID vaccines. I've got to say I have a lot of admiration for him. I think if I ever got the chance to meet, I'd probably get on very well with him.
He was one thing that stood up for me. If you're talking about Bobby Kennedy, he was during COVID. He was in Germany. So in Germany, there was a rally, and I think there are 2 or 4 million people were on the street of Berlin, and he was addressing. So he's one of the people who's traveling around, interfering and intermingling with like-minded people. So I thought that was wonderful. So a lot of respect for doing this, because we're this small French minority, and then as a leader like that, walking around through this, I think that was wonderful, and the speech as well. So
absolutely right. Well, as always, when I'm having fun talking to somebody, as I have had a lot of fun tonight talking with you, the time goes in rather quickly. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to bring it to a close just now, Jasper. But as I always like to do, with guests on my channel, I always give them the last word. So I'm going to give you the next couple of minutes to say whatever it is that's on your heart, whatever it is you want to say to the audience.
Well, thank you for that. So yeah, my major issue, of course, is because of my background in gastronomics and food security. I think we need to support our farmers, and in Holland we gotta have loads of backlashes, but it's happening throughout, especially in Germany, in France, in Spain. We saw in 20 different European countries that farmers raise up. So, and it's important to have our own food security. We need to support the farmers. Another way back around, they are the ones who are supporting us. They've got massive machinery. If you look at the tractors, it looks like an army. And yeah, I wish the new government that's coming in from the Netherlands a lot of luck and a lot of brave support and support back to the farmers. And of course, I think in June we're getting European elections. So each elections, or if it's the state election or European elections, or for the elections in America, we're getting new people coming in, because we see a lot of times that people bounce their head, financially get hurt or in another way, and they will vote on our side. We just need to have the time that we have enough people to get on our side, to have the majority and turn these rules around. Go out of the European Union, go out of the NATO, go out of the World Economic Forum, and all those NGO companies who thinking they are the ones who rule the Netherlands or other countries in the world. So yeah, and of course, censorship laws. That's the other thing that I'm worried about. In Europe, they're now planting these new rules and regulations. Same with in Canada. So don't talk badly about your government. And that's not. I'm against the government. I think governance is really cool, but we have to keep it small. Just for the small things in life, that we make sure when it's dark, a lantern is turned on and the roads are really nicely done. But that's it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, Jasper. And, you know, we mustn't ever forget history, and we should learn from that, because, as you said right at the beginning, there was real famine, there was real hunger in the Netherlands. And we never want to see that again. But if these people are the globalists at the top, who are, I believe, trying to engineer something like that, because they believe if they can control the food, they can control the people. And I think that's a very, very worrying trend that we're seeing.
We saw it throughout the whole of history, and history is not been taught anymore at school, and we are hardly talking about it. But things happened in history. It's just like in 3 or 4 generations happening the same thing. So we need to keep in top of mind that's it happened before, and it can be happening within a couple of years. So. Yeah.
Yes, and maybe even before that. But anyway, Jasper, I was going to say, just an absolute pleasure to have had you on the show. Thank you so much indeed. Would you come back on again at some future point?
I would love to. I would love to talk about other things. So there are so many things to talk about, what's happening in the Netherlands and in Europe, and the world politics around it. There's more than enough to talk about. So if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, if you look at the World Economic Forum, if you look at the binding contracts that these types of NGOs are putting up on our government, so we basically get being an employee of the World Economic Forum. So there's loads of problems that we're having and needs to be discussed. So I'm happy if you find the time, I'm happy to be there.
I will always find the time for people from Holland. I think they're wonderful people, and I was an honor to meet you, and it's great to have you on the show here, Jasper. So thank you so much indeed for being on. And for all the people who are out there listening to this, you know, I'm having great fun traveling around, and I'm having great fun finding people and speaking to people who are sharing such knowledge and inspirational voices that are being heard. And it's important that we all understand we're in this fight together, and that's why Freedom Train International was founded. We've talked about censorship. We've talked about freedom of movement, freedom of choice. That's exactly what Freedom Train is all about. And very soon now, within the matter of weeks, we're going to be putting up some more very, very detailed information about what happens next and what we think you need to do. And we'll give you some good advice on that. So thank you once again. And to all the people who are following this channel and all the thousands of new people who have followed it within just the last few days, my sincere thanks. I'll get to know each and every one of you in due course. But my thanks to each and every one of you for helping to share and spread this vitally important information. So thank you one and all. And thank you once again, Jasper. It's my absolute pleasure to have you on. And this is Jim Ferguson. We'll speak soon. Bye-bye for now.